Hey, welcome everyone to our 46th episode of Magicians Without Borders. We've already started. Thank you for being here and listening live on either Facebook or YouTube or joining later on a podcast. So thank you for being here and tuning in to what's been, a great year using this medium and trying to find new ways to get our message out and also engaging with people from all over the world. So hello to everyone that is listening. And before we start, I wanted to say that this episode is also sponsored by Home Light. So Home Light empowers people to make smarter decisions during one of life's most important moments, buying or selling their home. Their technology crunches the numbers to determine which real estate agent or which instant offer company will get you the most money for your home. They build products that put more power in your hands and make it easier to get the best outcome when you buy or sell a home. So please visit www.homelight.com. We're very grateful that Homelight sponsors this episode. And as we always do, we tell you different ways that you can support us. So one is like Homelight. If you want to sponsor this podcast, please do reach out and we can highlight you before we start our episode as a sponsor. And also remind you that we have our corporate.magicianswithoutborders.com website where you can find corporate entertainment for virtual events. We've done this for the past year for wonderful companies, and we'll leave you with a little description of what it is. Hello, my name is López from Magicians Without Borders, and this is where we create our virtual magic show. We would love to have you. We have multiple cameras where we can see magic different ways, even one for close-up. Let me take you there, and here you can see magic that's going to happen very, very close in front of your screen, and we would love to have you here with us. We've done this show over the last year for great companies like Waymo, YouTube, Google, and we would love to have you. We can deliver this show via Zoom, via Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, or WebEx, or any other communication platform. Looking forward to seeing you at the show. Bye-bye. So if you are part of a remote team or you manage a remote team or work in a company that's going remote, this is a great way to enhance your remote workers' well-being and reduce, that Zoom fatigue that we all are going through right now. And as always, I want to remind you that every last Wednesday of the month, we've got our mailbag episode. So please do send us your questions and comments to our email podcast at magicianswithoutborders.com or tweet them at magicianswb so that we can get your comments and your questions and we talk about them in the show. And on today's show, we're going to talk about the performance of magic and why that's important, what we think about it. And as always, here's our founder. Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm fine, Carlos. It's so great to see you again and to be here. And welcome all of you who are listening and watching, however you're doing that. So I'm thrilled to be here. And I'm actually just came from doing a performance. So if we're gonna, I am not exactly sure how we're gonna talk about that tonight, but I'm sure it will unfold in some wonderful way.
And well, let's get into your reactions on your recent performance. Like, how did it go today? How did you feel about performing live? Doing this show. You've been doing it a couple of times already, and you have more to go. Like, what went good? What went not so good? Did you change something from last time to this time?
Yeah, this was the second show of the season at this resort, Timberlock, that I perform at in the Adirondack Mountains. It's a very um, wonderful resort, a little bit of a kind of high end resort, and yet it's got a little twist to it. People live right on this beautiful lake in these cabins that they
Mhm.
rent. There's no electricity in the cabins. They
Wow.
only use little gas lights. And these people are from New York City and from big cities and whatever. So they feel like they're on, some outdoor, the Lewis and Clark expedition or something. It's quite amazing. And yet they have a dining room that serves really like 4-star kind of meals. And so it's rustic elegance. That's their kind of tagline. And what's wonderful about it is it's one of those resorts where people have been coming for 40 years, So my audience is made up of grandparents, parents, and children. But 20 years ago, the parents were the children and the grandparents were. So it's last week, there was a boy there who said he was 16 years old and he saw my show for the first time when he was 4 and he
Wow.
has seen it every year since. So he's seen my show at Timberlock 12 times, you know. And I made a joke that the organization Amnesty International, which investigates torture around the world, would maybe consider that torture. That he had to watch my show 12 times. But I mentioned last week and this week, also in response to your question, because the audience is like 60% old timers and 40% maybe new people, or 30-40% new people. I try to do something new for those people who have seen my show so many times. But last week after my show, someone said, we've seen your show now for whatever, 12 years, 15. I've been going there for 16 years, which is
Wow.
amazing. They said, but it's always different, and they said, because the way you work with the kids, always is surprising and what the kids say. And it reminded me once again that performing is so much about, not so much about me or about, but it's about the magic that happens with the kids, and that's different every time. So I tried a few things last week that were new, and I think one of them kind of worked really well. Um, but the other two, it may be just that I'm still getting used to it and trying to not think about it and just do it and stay connected with the audience. But last night I did I returned to my old show. I still did a couple of new things, but I
Mhm.
returned to some things that I've done for many, many years. And I I think it was a better show. And I think that people really, really enjoyed it. And the kids who came up to help me were just perfect. And it made me, think of something we want to talk about at some point is Derek Delgadio's amazing show in and of itself. And at some point in his show, he says tricks are a means to an end. And what is the end? What am I hoping for of my magic show? Do I want to amaze? Do I want to amuse? Do I primarily want to really do something really entertaining? And the magic moments, there's only a few of them throughout the
Like
show.
six, yeah.
That moment when the magic happens, when the child opens their hand and there's two sponge balls in there. But there's been 2 minutes leading up to that. And how do you make that entertaining?
And engaging. I think it's so important because I think that the performance of magic is something that needs to be studied and needs to be rehearsed and needs to be practiced as much as and sometimes even more than the technical stuff of the trick. I think it's so important in order to do a very convincing performance. If you're going to do a trick that's short, that's for social media or the new performance mediums, maybe it's more important that it looks good on camera and that's it. But if you want to tell a story like the one that Derek Del Gaudio, enthralls us in, that needs to be, very well rehearsed, scripted, practiced, and it's not something that is as a recipe that you follow, like with a trick, right?
Yeah.
If you do a trick, sometimes you just need to follow certain steps and it's done. Of course, some other ones are the ones that are not sleight of hand, but when you do the whole performance, you need to nourish it and you need to experience different things. And that's why I wanted to ask you, hey, did you change something from before? Because when you do it multiple times, you say, hey, I didn't feel that comfortable here, or maybe what if I add this or I take away this. And I think that part is so important. And I was talking with Alejandro Muniz. He's our head local magician in Brazil, who we're going to be having on shortly, I hope. He was, talking about this great. He's a magic inventor as well, and he has this best-selling magic trick that's with this like the chalkboards that you have two chalkboards and
Oh yeah,
they you
spirit
can
slates, I think they sometimes call them.
yes, he has a modern take on it. It's wonderful, and he he told me a story of how he was performing it, and it's so good, right, that it was, too perfect, right? The that sense on the audience, and he's like, I cannot believe it's happening that way, like, and he had a hard time getting it to a place where it's just a great piece of performance, right, rather than just a magic trick. And I think that's something that needs nurturing, needs
Yeah.
trial and error. And I love our philosophy on it, or our motto, that we when we have our kids, we tell them, it's a magic performance is 90-10, right? We tell them, of 100% of the performance, 90% is the story you're trying to tell, what you're trying to convey to the audience, right? And how you get them to care, and how you get them
Yeah.
to be with you and engage them in what's happening. And 10% is the trick that you're going to present, right? 10%, it's the magic, right? But 90% is the story. And I love the way that we do it, and we teach it, and we put it as a challenge to our students, saying, hey, you need to write down a story, like, come up with something, right? Come up with a story around the magic trick that you're going to do. And I think, and that does not come easy at first. You need to,
Right.
get into it and get into it. So, any thoughts on that, on 90-10 philosophy, Tom?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's another way of saying, what is that, 80%, 90%, whatever it is, that when Gaudio says that our magic, I think the trick is a means to an end. And what do I want? After the show last night, people came up to me and they said, you were so wonderful with the children. You just made them really shine. And they were the stars of the show. And that was a great compliment, that I somehow have learned how to get out of the way, how to, it takes some work to do that. You have to say certain things and ask the child questions, or like I do, and I did for many years, and I didn't do it last week, but I decided I'm going to do it this week. I begin with the cups and balls. I always do that, and that it was funny last night. I got distracted, and this guy came up to help me with the final load, like he did the magic at the end, and I got lost, and I picked up a cup, and I thought there was going to be a load under there, but I had gotten distracted, and there was a ball there, and I realized the final load was still in my pocket, so I had to. But anyhow, that was just I had gotten distracted, and I don't know exactly how that happened, but I figured out a way to recover. But then the next two tricks are a silk vanish,
Mm-hmm.
where a little child comes up and I give them the magic wand and I put the silk in my hand and they wave over it and they say and all that, and it vanishes. And then that's followed by the sponge ball. And I put the one supposedly sponge ball in the child's hand, but I've really loaded two of them. And I give them the magic wand. And I said, now, like Josephine did with the silk, make that sponge ball disappear, and it refers back to the first trick. Like I want them to, but the sponge ball is sticking out of their hand, and they're waving over it and saying magic unicorn or whatever. And it's still there. It's not disappearing. And they're not getting it. They didn't make it disappear like the first kid did. They're not as good as the other kid. At that moment, they're thinking, and I say, oh, here, just open your hand and we'll start over. And they open their hand and there's two of them. And I get annoyed at them. I said, I wanted you to make it disappear. Why did you do this? And they said, I don't know. I think it was the magic word I said or something. And the audience is laughing. And just seeing the rhythm of the show, that you compare the kid to somebody else and they're not as good. And it turns out maybe they're better than them, or whatever, or they're at least as good. And so I started thinking, I don't know that I need to do a lot of new things. I just have to be really present and work with the kid. And I don't know, that's sort of the thought that came to my mind. I don't know. What does that suggest to you?
Yeah, I think I have two thoughts on it. One is that when you're performing and you like to improvise, I think that's super powerful, because you feed off the energy of the of the audience, and if you have an assistant, and then you can take it whichever direction. And I think that's wonderful to see, but it's sometimes hard to do. I mean, you need to know yourself a lot. You need to figure out the place in the trick that you're in. Like, for example, the cops and balls that you just said, you got lost, but you cannot. And when you're learning, when you're starting and you get lost, and we see it with our kids, right? They get frustrated and they no, I fucked up, right? And,
yeah.
They want to end, right? They want to go hide. But the cool thing about it, I was thinking, is that the audience does not know what's going to happen, right?
That's exactly right. When I lifted that up, I was surprised.
Yeah.
But there was a ball there. There wasn't supposed to be anything there, but there was a ball. But I thought the final low, they didn't know. They didn't know.
They didn't know. So that's something to our advantage that we can go wherever we want with it, but we need to be comfortable with that, being one step ahead of the audience, that if the trick does not go as planned, we can take it somewhere else. But that's ability, that's training, that's a lot of shows under your belt. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that the stories that we produce with our kids, and when we see them, they're wonderful, right? And we've talked about this before. The story of Zumba, when he was doing the little
ball and
vase, right? The whole story around this, just wow, what an amazing story, right? And he takes us into this whole world that's being represented with a little plastic ball and vase, and that's cool to see. And I always get surprised and pleasantly surprised with all our students when they get a new story for an old trick. And well, I think this puts us to in the place to talk about this great performance, great magic performance, that is not a magic performance by itself. It's a theatrical performance, I think, of Derek del Gaudio's in and of itself. I think it's mesmerizing, it's wonderful. If you are seeing this or hearing this and you have not seen it, we highly recommend that you go see it. You can find it on Hulu. And here I'm gonna put the trailer on it. So here's the trailer of the Hulu part of the show that you can see on there. So here it is.
Every secret has a unique weight to it, and you can only carry them for so long.
You think this is a performance. You see a man in a theater, there's an audience. It is difficult to see past what this looks like. You can see it for what it is, or you can imagine what it could be.
Before you came in here, there was a wall. Maybe you chose something you feel reflects who you really are in this world. The conceptual artist, the teacher, Someone here is an idiot. Idiot, wherever you are, please raise your hand. That's about right.
I come here day after day after day and attempt to defy some odds. I do not expect you to believe anything you're seeing.
Only lucky if you get to know how this story ends. Two things are about to happen. One of these things you will see, and the other thing we will see. We get to see you transform into something else.
I don't understand.
No.
We are all the unreliable narrators of each other's stories. But I'm not just defined by what you see. I'm also defined by all the things you will never see.
Every secret has a.
It's a wonderful performance. I want to read the description that's on the Hulu's website. It says Derek Del Gaudio's In and of Itself. It's a new kind of lyric poem. It tells the story of a man fighting to see through the illusion of his own identity, only to discover that identity itself is an illusion. An intimate and powerful exploration of what it means to be and be seen. The film chronicles Derek Del Gaudio's attempt to answer one deceptive, simple question: who am I? His personal journey expands to a collective experience that forces us to confront the boundaries of our own identities. I think it's a great show. So I want us to discuss how we felt about it. And well, for that, we invited a friend that's been here before, who had the fortune of seeing that show live in New York when it was on Broadway, and I recently saw it with him live on Hulu. So it's Felipe Pollo. How are you? Let's see if his internet connection.
Hey everyone, how are you doing? Tom.
Hello, Pollo. Hello.
Tom, really happy to see you again.
Happy. And it'll be an honor to talk with you
Is it
who
good?
saw that show live. Yeah.
So yes, I think we're having some trouble with
I was so happy to be able. Wait.
Well, yeah, we would love, Pollo, if you're hearing us, to try and have your perspective on the difference between seeing it live and then seeing it on recorded, like the one that we saw together. Because Tom, you did you see it live?
I didn't see it live. No, I saw it. I saw it on Hulu, and then I watched it a little bit today, but I didn't have time to see the whole thing today.
Is it better now?
But I saw most of it today.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So, Pollo, give us your reaction to it. We'll see if we can hear you.
Hello.
Hear you? Maybe if you turn off the video, it might be better.
Hey.
Well,
I'm here.
Yes.
Is it better now?
Your image is frozen, but
Live.
your voice was clear just then.
Well, I think it's gonna get better and better. I changed to my data because I'm not at home. I was outside Bogota today, but I'm now in Bogota. Um, but I was so happy when Carlos told me that we were going to talk about the show, uh, because I think, well, I had the opportunity, as Carlos did once, to make a trip and see a lot of different shows, and get a perspective. And I think that is actually something all magicians should do sometime. I think that's part of the job. Why? Because we need to see what is going on with everyone that is having success, and that will give us a point of start to see how can we find that success in our magic. Not only in our magic shows. I will say only in our magic. You know. And
So yeah, so we lost him, but yes, I think his point of view is that we've always been, very interested in seeing other renditions of magic performances that we think might nourish or nurture our own performance, and see
Yeah.
how how they approach a performance of itself, and then the magic, because I really do think those are two different things. One, how they approach magic, and one, how they approach performance.
Yeah.
So I think that was very that's very important for any performer to go see others, and others that do as well as Derek. So maybe a Pollo, turn off your video to see if just with audio it's better. So try to turn off your video, Pollo, and we'll try you on when you're with your video turned off. And Tom, well, tell me your broad reaction to it. What's your first reaction to it?
Well, it seemed like, I mean, first of all, just stepping back for a moment, I think it's about 90 minutes long. And there's probably maybe 10 minutes of magic, maybe 15 minutes of magic in the entire 90 minutes. I mean, he does a card kind of suite at one point where he's talking about being in a gambling game. But
Yes.
but anyhow, that is very interesting in itself. It's called, I don't know what it was called. I mean, people came there, I think, expect Pollo, are you there?
But go ahead. Finish your thought, Tom.
So I think people, and this will be interesting to ask Pollo, people came,
yes, I am. I'm
think,
listening to you.
to see a magician. And they saw this conceptual artist, storyteller,
Yes.
and there was a bit of magic. But I think in the whole 90 minutes, there may have been 15, 20 minutes. I mean, the letter reading was, I mean, I want to hear about that. But my main sense of it was comparing the experience of the performer to the experience of being ourselves in life. Are we performing? And are we performing like, I'm really curious about the Rolatista.
Rouletista. Yeah.
Rolatista. Is that the way we are? Are we trying to up the ante all the time so we get a better response from people? What does that have to do with the basic question of the show? Who am I? And
I think it's very deep, but also something that we struggle with every day, or that we not maybe struggle is not the word, but that we have to navigate every day. Because I really think that sometimes, so especially when you're doing something that you've never done before, I think that you have to perform, right? You have to perform as a something, right? So if I need to do a business decision or go into a business meeting, I need to perform as a business person, right? If I'm going to go to a school and do and teach something, then I need to do that, right? I need to go and perform as a teacher.
Right.
So I do think that we perform in different ways in different situations, and that's why I was going for this book, which is the theory of Vygotsky, right?
Oh, Vygotsky, yeah.
By a wonderful author, and friend, Louise Holtzman.
Oh, yeah.
And Lois, she of course, Vygotsky's theory is that we develop because we perform as, right? When we're small, we do a performance of talking, and we start blurbing stuff out because we're performing as we're talking, right? And you see babies doing that same thing, and that's because there's the I think it's called the zone of proximal development or something like that.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
You're in the periphery of a zone that's a little bit higher up than where you're at, so you start performing like them to learn and to then be part of the. I mean, you gain those abilities by performing as, and you see this in the corporate world or in the work world, as Louis says, that you see it with entrepreneurs. For example, they're building a business, they're building a company, but they don't have any idea what they were doing. They had a vision, right? But they have to figure it out on the way. And that's the performance aspect of it, right? You could be wrong, you could be right, you could make right decisions, wrong decisions, but you perform as it goes, right? And I think that is key, that you need to perform in different scenarios, different ways. And you can change that. I mean, it's in you to be able to change it. I don't know. I think that's something that gets me thinking when I think about that persona of him as the rouletista, right?
Yeah.
As somebody that, as he says, goes into something again and again and again, and it's resilience and how he goes through it once and twice and thrice and all this times and with the same outcome. I think I don't know. I think performance is so much more than just in the theater.
Yeah. And what do you think? And I don't know what Vygotsky or Lois Holtzman, she's from the East Side Institute, right? I mean, she's kind of the founder or head of that.
Yep.
How do they, I think sometimes the idea of performing not on stage, but in daily life, it has a negative connotation. Like we're not being real. We're playing a part. I'm not being myself. I'm performing so people will like me or something like that. How do you think about how I'm sure Lois is not talking about being inauthentic or not being myself.
Exactly. I think there's two sides of it. One is like there's a saying in English about that. Act it until you make it. No.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah. So and that can have.
I believe in that. Absolutely. Fake it till you.
And that can have the negative connotation, right? Of hey, you're fake, right? You're not yourself. Whatever, and you're doing things to deceive people and whatever, right? So that's the means to an end, right? Or is that you really don't know what you're doing, but you're developing, right? You are performing as if you know what you're doing, or as if you know what you're talking about, but you're discovering it in the way. And that's why I love that word performing, because in Spanish, there's no word that translates the full meaning of performance. Because performance is just when you perform at a task, right? When you perform as an athlete, yeah. Like
in sport.
like a soccer player. Yeah, like a soccer player, basketball player, you perform, right?
Yeah.
Or you're an executive and you go and perform, right? You leave everything behind and you do as you're told, and you go and perform. That's one translation for that word in Spanish, right? But the other one is you're playing, right? So you're playing as when you're doing a play in a theater, right?
Exactly.
But both those meanings are true in the definition in English of performing, right? And that's what I love about it, right? Because you are performing in the play sense and you're performing in the results meaning, right? And I think that's so interesting because you do that when you're faking it until you make it, right? You have to try and act up, right? And you try to, act as the others around you, so you learn and then you develop.
Well, that's certainly what young children do. So much of their life is playing, of course. That's how they learn. But often what they're playing, they're imitating and pretending they're adults, and they're faking it, and they're learning, they're learning how to be what they aren't yet, and they got to play at it. But that's, but I just want to get back to our very first discussion tonight about performing, like on stage, or like I was doing last night, and talking about in and of itself. It looks like he's being himself up there. Like he's not playing a part. He's just telling his story. But
and it feels genuine.
Yeah. But can it be both? I'm sure he says pretty much 95% of what he says during those 90 minutes is the same almost every night.
Scripted. Yep.
It's scripted. And yet, I think he's being himself. Or can we, like when I'm on stage doing a magic performance, people always say, well, what's your character? Like what character are you when you're performing? And I say, I'm a kind of heightened version of myself. I'm being myself, but in a dramatic kind of way. I don't think is Pollo. Oh no, he's but I really feel during my performance I'm being real. But it's certainly different than the way I am in ordinary conversation or in ordinary, I don't know.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, that you feel that you are you, but you don't act the same way you would in a mundane situation.
Yeah.
And I think both can be true. What you said, it's an act, it's a performance, right? But it's genuine performance. It's a performance of you, right? It's not a character.
Yeah.
Right? It does not mean that, or for me, it doesn't mean that one's better than the other, or one it's the way that it's supposed to be, and the other one's not. But I think they're both. There's a space for both of them to be true. And I think that gets across in his performance. You know that he what he does every night, because he did the show more than 500 times. It's the same show. He does the same six acts. He does the same tricks, right? He will try and use the same puns or gags or whatever, but he's being genuine, right? And and even if he's not, right, it gets to you as if he is. And I think that's the most important part, that you feel that his stories are his own, right? And I think that's so powerful. That's the art of the performer, right? When you go see a fantastic thing like I don't know, whatever a theater a play,
Shakespeare
right?
production.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
And you actually feel that you're seeing that character. That's because the performer is, very, very good at what he or she does, right? And you feel it like that, right? But with this act, I think it's so introspective and so deep that you feel like you're hearing him being genuine. And I think that's why it clicks with so many people, because you feel it like it is genuine.
Yeah, I think the Rolletista is really interesting. Let's just say all of us want to be loved. Let's say that. All of us we want people to love us and like us, right? So as a performer, like that really like heightens that ordinary experience of wanting people to like us as a person. So here we are, we're on stage, we have an audience who we're doing a performance for them, and they paid money, and we really want them to like us. It kind of takes the ordinary experience of daily life and he heightens it by saying, how many people will like me and come and pay money if I put one bullet in the gun? I'll get a lot of people, they'll come. And then I do that every night. And eventually people think, oh, the gun is a trick gun. He's whatever. And they stop coming. So you say, tomorrow night, I'm going to put 2 bullets in, and 3 bullets and 4 bullets, 5 bullets. And eventually he even says, I'll put 6 bullets and you can come and watch me kill myself, whatever. But I remember reading, I probably have 6 or 7 biographies of Harry Houdini. And something Houdini was plagued with was being a rolletista. He felt he always had to come up with something bigger and better and more death defying, just like Russian roulette. He had to do more and more and more, better and better and better, more and more, until he came up with the Chinese torture cell, and that was his ultimate death-defying trick. And isn't that the way, sort of, I was thinking in the beginning of our conversation tonight with those folks at Timberlock? I have to do better and better, more and more, newer and newer and newer tricks. And so what I'm wondering is how much of that is healthy, and it keeps me improving. And the 2 bullets and the 3 bullets are just a very dramatic way of saying, I want to get better at being a teacher or an engineer or a computer coder or whatever. I want to demand that of myself. I'm my own audience, or how much of it is pushing ourselves in ways that are crazy or too much, or what's the balance? Does that make any sense? I don't know.
Complete sense. And I think that's something that I struggle with a lot when being or doing social work. It's so disheartening sometimes, and it's so hard that you have to go through this again, and you don't see progress, and I struggle with that a lot, saying who's going to push you, right? Because it seems that like this is a problem that's not, it's not of interest to a lot of people, right? Not a lot of people solve this problem that you're at, so it's not that interesting. So should you pursue it, and all these obstacles are on the way, and funding, all that, and you're like, oh God, right? And it's what you said. Do I push myself harder, or do we get the other people to push us harder, right? And sometimes it's hard to discern between the two in what I do, every day. But I get what you're saying, and I also get that performance of me, it's different in the different stages, right? And it's okay to have different identities. I think that's where I'm getting at, right? That you can have an identity in some places that's different from the others, right?
Oh yeah, I think it can be really, really difficult when a performer can never kind of get off stage, that they have to be. I think it would be terrible to be a celebrity and you are on in a way all the time.
No, yes, that has to be super hard. Super hard.
And you're walking down the street and you have to be, Brad Pitt, the movie star, but not just the regular person, like who's just out shopping. Leave me alone. I'm just a shopper, But this is really terrific because it's a conversation I have a 2.5 hour drive back from this show.
I got it. I finally got it. Sorry, I'm so excited now.
Please.
Let's talk about Derek Del Gaudio. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, please.
Finish your thought, Tom, and we'll get his reaction to the show.
No, I have this 2.5 hour drive, and I think about the show I'm going to do, and then I think about the show I did do for the drive there. I'm rehearsing in my head, and then on the way back, I'm kind of reviewing how I did, and what worked and what didn't. And it's wonderful that it's a place where I'm going to go to next week again, so I can act. But anyhow, Pollo, I want to hear from you. I'm so sorry. The technicalities didn't.
I don't know what is going on. My iPhone, I think, is broken now or something. So I am hearing something that is not an iPhone that is working perfectly. That is just something that I just learned from today. But that's another story. So I've been trying to catch a few thoughts because the transmission, even the audio was terrible. But I'm trying to go a little bit back about what you were talking about before, about the Ruletista, about the show, and about the 15 minutes, because I was thinking about that, which I haven't thought of that before, which was he does not more than 15, 19, 20 minutes of magic in a whole hour.
90 minutes.
90-minute show.
That's incredible.
Even though, and I told this, and I told this to Mentor. I don't know if I told you, or I suppose Carlos told you, but I wanted to interview him after the show. So he told me he was going to give me a 15 minutes, and we got a whole hour, like the next day.
Wow.
And we talked for this whole hour, and I had so many questions about the show, and he told me, it is beautiful how he talk about, for example, his relationship with Helder, because about the creating process, right?
I'm sorry,
Because
his relationship with who?
with Helder Guimaraes,
Oh, yeah, okay.
because both of them separated and create their own shows after they have been doing a lot of things together and a lot of success. Um, and I got a lot of impressions from that day, and one of them was how deeply, like part of the pain that he shows in the show belongs to the rupture of that relationship he had with Helder, because they were really, really like Carlos and I, like a long relationship. Like they worked together for a long time. They had a beautiful synapses and everything, and he actually mentioned it in some point. And I thought of that a lot. And about the magic, about I when he said to me, I didn't want it to look like a magic show, even though they knew they were going to see magic.
Mhm.
Well, Carlos will send you the article that I wrote. But what I loved is he handles to put the magic in the right spots of the show, without you never say, oh, is he going to do a trick? Because everything is so beautiful. I think his stories are also magical. Opening your heart in the way he does it in the show is it's something you haven't seen really. You never know. For example, we have heard the grandfather story about the snow, for example, no, and I'm pretty sure somebody once invented that story to do the snowstorm, but we will never know who's telling the truth.
Uh-huh.
And I've been thinking about that for a long time. And Carlos knows that I'm very connected about telling about myself in the shows. And so when I saw the show, and I think he went, I won't say too far. He just went far enough or far away about opening his heart to a lot of strangers and
Like
being able
talking
to,
about his mother and her
yeah,
being gay and all of that,
ex- exactly. And when I
Yeah, and
when I saw that,
the part of the show where the brick is the protagonist, and that whole story of the mother starts getting, it's super personal. It's very, very
yeah,
good.
it's just he goes so far, but he likes it, and I think he likes it because you can see he's so dark, could be the word, you know, in his words, in his how would you say, in the tone of his voice.
yeah.
He never goes too high or maybe too low. He just keep it in a regular tone the whole show, which I do think it's quite that's something to mention. There is no clown, there is no, and boom, the brick is gone. And so he just
Oh,
and
ta-da!
and
So,
yeah, and a lot of confetti or whatever. And I like it, that he made magic in a way I think I have never seen it before. The brick trick is something when you see it live, you can't actually believe it because you have seen the table before, because you have seen he actually had the camera before in a central position doing the card trick. So you have seen the table, that there's no line to hide the brick. There's nothing that happens there. So when it happened, I was blown away. I didn't
yeah,
know what was going on, and I told that to Carlos because, of course, when you see it on TV or on a screen, there's a lot of starts in your mind. I'm pretty sure. And you're when you're there and you see that everything that happens, and I was telling Carlos all the time, like everything that he does is exactly like that. The show is completely faithful to the reality, and I love that too. And I think what he managed is how to make the script, the magic, and his feelings combined with the interaction of the audience in such a perfect way that I've seen, and I think we have seen a lot of magicians. I mean, I went to see before of that trip. I went to see Matt King or Copperfield, or and Copperfield managed to make you cry with a lot of different things. Getting inside the video with his father in the past. But this is completely different. There's just a few little magic tricks, but a lot of heart. And then the ending, the two ending part, I will say, with him telling everyone what they grab in the paper, in the I am little tag. It's quite amazing. And then when everything vanishes, it's just. I think that's the most magical part of the show, and I think what he managed to do really well was also how to be honest with his magic, or with his magic, like when he does the boat floating inside the bottle, or disappearing the brick, or all the cards. He talks about magic, and this is something we're not allowed to do, but he does it in such a perfect way. He's saying, I practice.
What do you mean, Pollo? He talks about them, about his practicing, you mean?
Yeah, when he does a card trick.
Yeah.
He's always saying what he's doing. He's saying this is practice. This is something that I just got into it, and I wanted to do it as perfect as I can.
Right.
So he's not saying I can make the first card appear always in the top. He's not, he's going, I will say, like under the script.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I saw that as I think that's something that maybe Penn and Teller tricked. They put a trigger on it with magicians, telling a little bit of the truth because everybody knows how magic works. But even people know how magic works, they got blown away, and that's a beautiful part too. And I think that's something that Penn and Teller discovered. They showed you how the cups and balls works, and even though they do it, and you get blown away, and you say, "Wait, what?" They explain the trick, but even though I'm asking how the hell they do it, that is something we have to think about it.
Yeah.
Because that is a subtext that we haven't been able to work before. We're always saying, I can do it, I can put the card on top, I can, but nobody's saying, actually I have here, and maybe I put one of the cards in the middle of that, and then the route, I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but maybe that's part of the things that they have done it with some classics of magic, and they still work. And that's one of the lessons this show led us. And then I will say one of the most important questions this show led me was how far I want to give to the audience of myself. And I think that's a question we should always do. When I did my show on theater that Carlos saw, the one at La Comedia Teatro, when I started a little bit of stand-up comedy, and being a clown and did a little bit of stand-up comedy made me thought about how much can I give of myself to the audience, like from my past and my experiences and my pains, not only try to make that fun, but also how to tell everyone I have suffered because of something, And I think that is something we should think about, because that is a really a very good way to connect with the audience. Not only what we can do with our hands, but also tell them that we have shared pain in this path, whatever the path we have taken before.
Roger, you think you feel that differently from being there live than on video?
Yeah. It is. Even though they made it pretty good on video, the experience live, because of the interaction, because the show is really interactive. Giving to somebody a book that he can take away, talking about the street where the brick is going to be in the future. So when the show is that interactive, doing a video will always take out that part, and that's a huge part of the show. So not only not being able to talk to him when he says, I am a unicyclist, because that was the one that I took, because I found it. So yes, I think it will never be the same, even though there's a lot of shows that can be done on live, on video, and they will be great, because not everyone is open to interact a lot with the people.
Yeah.
You don't see the hugging, the letter.
Wonderful.
It is impossible not to cry. You cry in the video. Imagine watching somebody saying, Tom reading a letter saying, when you went to India and you appear a coin, and you're saying, what the hell is going on? It's mind. That is actually mind blowing. That's magic in it. It's pure in its purest.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
you got into another one, into another person. It's not like, when my mom, and when that happens to me on the roulette on somebody. No. You open a letter. Imagine Carlos opening a letter, and it's your sister telling you when you were learning how to dance salsa in the garage of your house, and 20 years ago, and it will be. It just went too far.
Yeah.
Too far. So no, the answer is no, sir.
So, any final thoughts on this and the power of performance in magic after discussing this great, performance of Derek?
Well, I'm left with the question of both how much of myself, like my story, and maybe even the parts of my story where I've gone through really difficult times of suffering. How much of my story do I want to or can I bring into my performance? I think that's a great question, and not just in some kind of pornographic way, just to make people feel something, but actually genuine. Like, what would be? I'd like to create a whole new show. Whether I ever perform it or not, that would be something else. But a creative activity of creating a show truly based on my own life. That would be like Jeff McBride's latest show.
Oh yeah.
Not in the way Del Gaudio did, but he basically told the story of his life as a magician. And I thought it was terrific, but I don't think it was as vulnerable as Del Gaudio's,
Yeah.
I think it's the vulnerability of Del Gaudio that makes it all different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when he was talking about coming out and seeing his mother kissing a woman and what that did to his world, And it really brought him closer to his mother, ultimately. It wasn't like, fuck you, I'm leaving. I can't stand living with a queer, or whatever.
Yeah.
It really deepened his love for her, but it was very difficult, and it was beautiful. It was just fantastic.
I remember so
we
much
can,
the sentence.
we can say that opening up that vulnerability space, it brings out something that connects us to the audience in a way that's very hardly done in the same way, if it's not from a true place that where we're talking in the beginning, Tom. Like, if it's not genuine enough, then I think the connection cannot be as deep and as real as you feel it.
Yeah.
And and you see that when you tell a story of your own, right? When we tell the story of how hard it was to get the kids from the slums of Bogota to New York, and everything that we have to go through, right? Everyone's like, oh God, that was so hard, right? But when there's that place, and one of the coolest moments, when we tell that stories, when we tell the audience, remember what it's like to be on the airplane for the first time. Most of the audience won't remember that, but when you see that video of the grown-up kids experiencing that for the first time, you feel something, because it's real, because it's true, because and you're sharing that in an honest way. And I think that that's something that all performers should experience, or open themselves up to the opportunity of experimenting with it, with being vulnerable.
That's such a simple but beautiful, powerful moment in that film. Those teenagers are like 4 years old at that moment. Oh my God, we're in an airplane and it's gonna take off, and they're scared and they're excited and they can't believe it, and it's really
and that's true. That's super genuine, and that connects. That's that experience of, wow, like maybe you remember it, or you're like, oh man, I fly every day and I don't get that way now, but look at what a mundane thing of taking off on an airplane does to somebody that's experiencing it for the first time at 17, right?
Right. It's wonderful.
Yeah. I think there are 2 points of thinking of this now, because when we work as performers, there are 2 sides basically for me. One is when we create something and we invited everyone to see it, and the other one is when we get called to do something for somebody, and we have to create something for them. It's a company, it's some kids or whatever. So when I saw the Gaudio, I figured out that when I created my next show for the people, for a stage for my own, I would love to put more of me. But when we got a call from a company or to do a corporate show or a talk, we have to know who is going to be that audience. Yeah. And then we have to knowing who they are, we need to find our connection to them. So we have to find that connection from our story with them, which is different. There are 2 different points of start. Because maybe the show that we got is not going to connect as good if we think about to whom we're going to perform. Then we connect with who we are, and then we create a script and a magic show, and we connect it, which is completely different. And I think those are 2 points of start, completely different, but to get you to a good result when we talk about the audience.
Yeah, I think we probably need to end, but I was just thinking about Eugene Berger, and when Berger performed in that bar in Chicago that, paid for his rent and his food, did he do the gypsy thread the exact same way? I think he probably did. I don't know. Or the fact that he was there, did he do it differently if he was performing for a group of priests or at Jeff McBride's, Magic and Mystery School? I don't know. I would like to think that he did it the same way every time. Fuck the audience. If they don't like it, the hell with them. I'm going to be Eugene Berger. I don't know. He was savvy enough that he probably adjusted a little bit to his audience if it was corporate or a bar or a group of ministers or priests or something.
That's a dilemma that we have to work around every time we perform.
Yeah,
but it's a great way to think about it.
Pollo, could we have you back again to talk about Del Gaudio? There are some things. There's a line that he says in there that I don't want to talk about it right now because I'd like you to think about it and we talk about it together. It's a simple line. He says, tricks are a means to an end. And what is the end of our magic? What are we doing with our magic? What was he doing with his magic in and of itself? And I think, I'm not sure magicians think about that question. What are we trying at the end of our show? What do we really want the audience to walk away with?
Yeah.
Not just, wow, he fooled the hell out of me, or he's fantastic. But did we have some meaning that we wanted to communicate, and I think he had a big one, who am I? Who are you?
It's the quintessential question, it's very transcendent.
It doesn't get much bigger than that.
Yeah, it's very.
We should talk about that with a better Wi-Fi.
Okay. Please, I would love it. And just to be with you is such a joy. So let's do it again.
I'm so happy to see you guys.
Thank you so much, Pollo and Tom, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And hey, we're going to pick this up next week and talk a little bit more about Del Gaudio in and of itself. Wonderful, wonderful performer.
Okay.
So thank you, Tom. Thank you, Pollo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tom, I love you.
Bye.